Welcome to the NETHERSTORM. Well-known, pretty cool place. I mean, you got arcane magic just suffusing the atmosphere. You got these giant thingamathings of arcane magic. They're absolutely everywhere. Huge things sucking in arcane magic. In general, it's a great place to be arcane, and that's why I've come here to talk a little bit about arcane and the spec and just kind of what you're doing with stats, glyphs, talents, and so on in 6.1, as far as I've been led to believe. So first up, stat priorities are pretty simple. I mean, I just sim myself in Simulation Craft. Looking at your basic stats, it's going to be Intellect is 6.84 DPS per point, which is clearly far and away your best stat, followed by Spell Power, really high. Mastery is what you're looking to stack as a secondary stat, followed by Haste. And then not too much below that is Multi-Strike, Crit, and finally Versatility. So, I mean, none of your secondaries are horrible. I mean, they're all above 3.2, right? But Mastery is the clear winner, followed by Haste. Obviously, Spell Power upgrades from your weapons are huge too. So not really too much to say about that. As far as glyphs and talents go, glyphs, I would always use Arcane Power unless... because if you sync Arcane Power with Bloodlust, it's going to be a DPS increase. This glyph is kind of a filler slot. You can use Slow, Arcane Explosion, whatever the hell you want, really. Arcane Explosion's nice for any kind of AoE. I would always use Rapid Displacement, unless in a specific encounter you're trying to blink a stun or a root. Rapid Displacement is just too useful to get your double blink, especially on Blackhand. As far as talents go, from pretty much every encounter I would use Ice Flows, because being able to cast while moving is a huge thing, unless for some specific fight gimmick you want Blazing Speed for the sprints, or Evanesce to like cheese something, like on Mythic Margok and Arcane Wrath, for example. Refined Flame Glow gives you the most mitigation for the most laziness. That's why I call it Lazy Glow. Ice Barrier doesn't really give you all that much for being more active and losing your DPS. Alter Time is more of a gimmick talent. You know, I would use it on a specific encounter to avoid a specific mechanic, but not really otherwise. It's PvP tier, whatever. Cauterize I really prefer, because you're never, you know, caught with your pants down with Cauterize. It's never like, gee, I wish I had just Greater Invised, I would have lived, because Cauterize will always save you, unless you do something particularly dumb. Greater Invis is nice on specific encounters, for cheesing specific mechanics. And Cold Snap, you know, if you want to cheese something by having 2 ice blocks, is nice. But for the most part, I would use Cauterize. These 3 tiers are kind of your DPS tiers. This tier with Rune of Power encounters and Mirror Image is the simplest to explain. I would say if you can keep 90% uptime on Rune of Power, use it. Otherwise, on a more mobile fight, use Encounters Flow. I mean, I typically would use Rune of Power on something like Gruul, Chromog, Flamebender Kagraz, kind of encounters where you can be sure you'll be standing still for a long-ass period. Whereas on something like Hans and Franz, where you're moving for the Snappers, moving for various dumb bullshit, like Blackhand, lots of movement, probably Encounters Flow, be a solid choice. Mirror Image is kind of very specific and gimmicky. If you're looking for specific single target burst at a certain point in the encounter, it's nice. I wouldn't say in Blackrock Foundry is anything where you're particularly looking for that, so it kind of goes unused. These two are kind of, Rune of Power and Encounter Slayer are kind of your main thing there. For patchwork fights, Supernova and Prismatic Crystal are a super good way to go. Supernova actually double dips from the Crystal, because it'll give you the cleave from hitting the boss, which is the second target. And then it'll also give you the main damage from the Supernova. So it really benefits from the Crystal, as well as the fact that you can stock up Supernovas and then empty them both into the Crystal. As far as any sort of single target where you can get that Crystal down and the boss isn't moving around much, it's a super strong choice. Probably, you know, at least 2k over, well, maybe like 1500 or 1000 DPS over the other option. For any sort of fight with multiple targets where you're not fire, although for a lot of multiple target fights fire is better, You're looking at Arcane Orb. It's really nice, because basically the way you'd use Arcane Orb is whenever you drop your stacks with an Arcane Barrage, you immediately Orb and get them all back, and you're right back to a 4-stack. It's really nice. Nether Tempest doesn't have the same interaction with Prismatic Crystal, not as effectively as Supernova does, and you don't get the initial burst. If you want to just like specifically math it out, Nether Tempest is going to be doing, because you see it's about tripled by having the Arcane Charges, which you would never cast Nether Tempest unless you had 4 stacks. So you'd be looking at about a little under 30k here per cast, whereas with Supernova you get 40k, a little under 40k. But you need 2 GCDs, 2 global cooldowns to cast Nether Tempest twice, because it only has a 12-second duration, as opposed to Supernova's just once every 25 seconds. I mean, on the whole, without the Prismatic Crystal interaction, it's fairly even. Nether Tempest will slowly pull ahead on very long fights. Nether Tempest is a strong choice for sustained AoE, no doubt. Nether Tempest will also proc more Arcane Missiles, which will keep you at 4 stacks longer, which is a kind of a nice little benefit. And you can kind of fish for Arcane Missiles procs with Nether Tempest. One thing that's non-obvious you should definitely know about Nether Tempest is the Pandemic effect, which was added in Warlords of Draenor, which means that if you refresh your Nether Tempest with less than 3.6 seconds to go on its duration, it will go past its 12-second duration and go to up to 15.6. So you don't have to worry about refreshing it early to an extent, which is really nice. Nether Tempest Orb is kind of a go-to on multi-target and mobile fights for Arcane. Whereas if you're on something like Gruul or Chromog and so on, like Flamebender Kagraz, not on Mythic, mind you, on Flamebender Kagraz you should be fire, or you're doing it wrong. But Supernova Prismatic Crystal is awesome single target. But Overpowered is kind of a specific niche talent. Unstable Magic I would never use unless you're just really bad at Nether Tempest and Supernova. It's just flat out less damage, but it's easy. But Overpowered, on a specific fight like Blackhand, where the boss is moving a lot, your crystal might get mucked up, and the orb doesn't have more than one target typically to hit, Overpowered can become a viable choice. So, I mean, I would use that specifically on Blackhand if you're not like kiting Siege Makers or something. So, yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say as far as the talents and glyphs go. A lot of these are pretty gimmicky choices. This is a pretty standard build for AoE, whereas if you're looking for single target, yeah, Supernova, Prismatic Crystal, Rune of Power.